Hi folks, I'm Matt and welcome to My Expanded Universe, a show where I go through the entire EU in chronological order as best I know how. Wow, we get to talk about some comic books today and boy am I excited. Now the first one is going to be from Russ Manning's classic Star Wars, The Early Years, and this is issue number 9, the final issue. Now remember, these were newspaper strips, but I'm going to be referring to them as the Dark Horse reprinted classic Star Wars Early Adventures. I don't think I mentioned Early Adventures in my last review, so hopefully I put something in the comments about that. But I was whenever I say Russ Manning, his is titled in Dark Horse The Early Adventures. Okay, I don't think a lot of them didn't happen before the classic Star Wars, but I think they just gave them that name because they had to do something to separate it from the Archie Goodwin, reprints that was just called basic classic Star Wars. Anyway, in issue 9, Han and Luke team up with Boba Fett on a mission. What? Boba Fett's in this, but can he be trusted? We don't know. I remember seeing this comic book back before I really knew what classic Star Wars was about. And I was still cutting my teeth in the expanded universe, meaning I was reading the books and some of the comic books, but some of these old classic Star Wars I didn't know much about. And I was kind of wary on them. So when the issues were coming out, I didn't buy them. When the trades came out, I finally broke down and bought them when I saw that they were, C canon. And so I remember seeing the cover and thinking, that's going to be awesome. And when I finally got to the Early Adventures, I remembered immediately what it was. I went, oh yeah, I remember I flipped through this comic book when it came out years ago. And so I was super excited to read it. Oh man, Boba Fett talks way too much in this. This is one of those rare instances where I think Boba Fett was mishandled. The comic books usually did a good job keeping Boba Fett the same and giving him that same mystique, that same, character, cold, standoffish. And I think they handled Boba Fett overall, I think they handled it pretty well. The newspaper strips did not. And I can't blame them because they came out years ago and, there wasn't some sacred rule against Boba Fett talking. Boba Fett has to talk. But man, he is a blabbermouth in this comic book. So Boba Fett fans may not be too happy to read this. Overall, the Early Adventures are a fun read. Let me just say that. I do think they're fun, just like the Archie Goodwin run that I'm still talking about. The early years of classic Star Wars were fun to read. Now, speaking of the Archie Goodwin series, let's go to classic Star Wars, and we're going to go to issue number 10. Now, in this issue, Luke and C-3PO travel to Aridus to check on a weapons facility for the rebellion. But that's not the real reason Luke is going. You see, Luke has heard a rumor that Obi-Wan is alive. What? He didn't die on the Death Star? Now we all know that was bogus and it had to be a fake. And when I was reading it, I said, okay, that's not real. It's a fake, And, well, let me just go ahead and get to the next episode and go ahead and tell you in issue 11, it turns out to be a fake. It's a plant by Darth Vader who's waiting for Luke in the Iron Tower, which, by the way, is an awesome name. And, of course, this fake Obi-Wan who befriends Luke and, of course, comes clean and feels bad for Luke and sacrifices himself to save Luke, save him from Darth Vader before Darth Vader can close in on him and get him. It was a fine story, okay? And back in the day, I bet people were going, oh, wow, Obi-Wan didn't die. Oh, because no one really knew what happened. He disappeared, when Darth Vader slashed through him and his clothes just, he just vanished. So people weren't really sure what had happened to Obi-Wan. So I can imagine people reading the comic strip back then and going, oh, he's alive. And then, oh man, he's a fake. Well, of course, by this time I knew he was a fake and Obi-Wan couldn't have been alive. And if so, that would have been a ridiculous story to have because it would have made A New Hope, the sacrifice that he made in A New Hope, pointless. But to me, I thought it was a pretty good story. I enjoyed it. The only little thing here is, how was Luke fooled in the first place if this Obi-Wan has no Force ability whatsoever? I would like to propose that, of course, Luke is still green here. He's kind of new. He's not that sensitive in the Force as much as he is. So maybe he didn't know how to check, or maybe he was just too excited and he wanted to believe it was Obi-Wan at first. So it was a decent story and a good idea for Darth Vader to trap Luke. I don't find this silly or stupid at all. I think, Darth Vader would try to stoop that low, drum up a rumor about Obi-Wan still being alive to see if that's what gets Luke closer to him, within his grasp. So I really did enjoy that one. Now, the last comic I want to talk about is issue number 12. Now, in this one, Han and Chewie go on a mission to retrieve some power gems from space pirates. And Luke is actually, he crash lands, of course, on the planet Hoth. Oh, now at this point, the newspaper strip, it was 1982, so Empire Strikes Back had already come out, and people knew they were at Hoth. So now the newspaper strips, after stretching out the adventures for 3 years until Empire came out, could finally start moving and connecting the series to Empire Strikes Back, right? Start setting things up. The reason they took so long on Yavin 4 is because they didn't know where the rebellion was going to be afterwards, and they didn't really want to jump to the story without, it may have been off limits. I don't know. Maybe it was off limits by Lucasfilm that they couldn't say where they were going. Just keep them on Yavin 4 for now. But when they saw, okay, they're going on Hoth, we can start moving over, and this is where the series starts switching over and getting ready for Empire Strikes Back. Now, let's go back to Han. Now, they're finding these power gems, space pirates. I've told you, a little silly. There is a cool, I think her name is Mistra. She's this cool little cyborg-like, helper of the pirates. I always thought that she was cool. There were some cool designs and cool looks in this classic Star Wars era, this comic strip era, and it's another reason why I like it so much. You talk about, and I've said this before, but Archie Goodwin, you got it in the artists too. They had to be super creative back then, and they made, in my mind, I thought decent worlds, decent characters that were interesting. And some of you have said, well, Matt, it's just not for me. I looked at this art and I thought, oh, this is stupid. Yeah, you may have missed the boat to appreciate it enough. I understand that. Remember, I've said the same thing about Knights of the Old Republic. I missed the boat on that. I don't see what's so special. I'm sure back in the day those computer graphics were great and it was a great game, and some of you still love the game. Like I still love the original Zelda. I could play that all day, and the graphics aren't that good. But if I was to show it to someone new, maybe one of my nephews would be like, yeah, this is okay, but the graphics are kind of cheap and, stupid. And they probably wouldn't appreciate it like I would. So I understand it is a time thing. Where did you come into the expanded universe, and when did you come into the expanded universe, on whether you can enjoy these or not. But for me and my money, these are well worth your time. All right, folks, that's all that I have for you today. See you next time with another video.